Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. Welcome to the Commentary Booth, where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week, I'm joined by a teacher and travel blogger who lists his favourite movie as Top Gun Maverick and favourite TV show as Band of Brothers. Welcome to the show, Buddy McClelland.
Thank you. Thank you for changing it.
Yeah, we changed it last time. I just remembered.
Yeah, you've kept it up. Thank you.
How's life? How's life treating you? You healthy again?
Healthy again. I haven't got COVID yet. Touch wood. Haven't got COVID yet, but I feel like I've got like all the other 8 viruses that come around without having COVID.
You got every other cold and flu without the actual like big special one.
Yeah, pretty much. I do every time I do a COVID test, I get really shocked that it isn't COVID, and it's like I forget the other 12 COVID tests I've done in the last 2 weeks. And I'm shocked every single time. I think maybe I'll try a saliva test. Maybe it's just the type of test. I just can't get it. I don't know what it is.
Immunity. Take it.
Yeah, well, I'm not immune to all the other little viruses and stuff going around, so I apologize in advance if I have a coughing fit.
Yeah, that's standard, buddy, though. You've always been susceptible to all those other weird bugs that you can catch.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you teach kids like I teach kids, so much hygiene, and I mean, I was paranoid about wearing masks. My nickname was Bubble Boy at work before it was cool to be Bubble Boy. But I think you just can't get away from it sometimes. Sometimes I get sneezed on, and at that point, it's too late. Sneeze is already in me.
Yeah, that's fair. How's everything else been going otherwise?
Good. New glasses, I can see. It's nice to actually see you.
Yeah, that's funny. Like the fact that you didn't realize that you had bad vision until.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have like bad. It's not bad vision, but it was to a point where when I put the glasses on, I was shocked at how good everybody else can see the world.
Yeah, that would be weird. Be like, oh, wait, what? This is what the world looks like? I thought everyone just had this weird fuzziness.
Yeah, especially in the distance. Like, first thing I did was come up on my balcony, which you can see quite a long way. And I just kept doing this and just, like, no way. You can see those things out there.
Yeah, so like when the whales were going past, Anne was like, oh, look at the whale. And you're like, yep, I see that.
I mean, I could see the whales, but apparently she could see the barnacles.
Good. Oh, like we were talking the boys last week, this is like your version of Compound V.
Yeah, like the world's lamest superpower until you actually need it.
It's like Cyclops without the cool bits.
Yeah, but I feel bad. Cyclops was my favorite, which is, I know, a weird favorite to have, but I feel bad for him. Like, he couldn't turn it off.
Yeah, that is the issue. It's just like, keep the glasses on at all times, or I might kill the people I love.
Yeah, super frustrating.
Yeah, so this week we're going to dive into a couple of new things, but we're feeling quite entrepreneurial, so we were going to review Super Pumped, The Battle for Uber, which I thought was way up your alley, and the Bob's Burgers movie.
Also up my alley.
Like a good burger.
Yeah, it's a pretty diverse alley.
Good. So we'll dive into Super Pumped first. Showtime drama series, which is now streaming on Paramount Plus, following the rise and subsequent fall of Uber's enigmatic co-founder Travis Kalanick. 7 roughly hour-long episodes, and based on a book by Mike Isaac. What did you think of the show overall?
I really liked it. Like, you're right, it is up my alley. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt in most things, though, as just a disclaimer to begin with. I think he's really good. I just like him as a person. So it was nice to see him playing that kind of a dirtier role, like a more grimy sort of a role that I didn't really quite expect. And I think it showed me that Uber's branding was a lot better than I realized it was, because I always associated Uber as being this really progressive, environmentally friendly, like nice place. But really, they were just trying to pump as much money out of people as they could, and did and do. Yeah, I like the way that it was shot. It's kind of, I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting at the start. It was a bit more intense than what I was expecting. And the way that they approached it with kind of a, I don't know how you would describe it, maybe like a semi-documentary style where it pops up and it gives you like a bit of narration at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. A lot more grimy than I thought it was going to be, which was, I guess, a nice surprise in the end.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be sort of as, like controversial as Uber was. Like you just kind of always looked at Uber as like this really great innovation and like just a great business model. But then, it turns out that behind the scenes, there was some really horrendous stuff happening. Didn't know a lot about Travis Kalanick, but I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt feels like he was perfectly cast in that role in terms of he was funny and charismatic at times, but then other times he was like, this guy is a massive jerk. And I think from the very outset, they immediately get you in the right footing when he's interviewing the potential new employee. And the final question is, are you an asshole?
Can you be an asshole? Like, yeah, you have to answer correctly.
Yeah. And
yeah, I think you're right.
Go ahead.
It did a good job for me where I think I changed teams as I watch it. And I feel like I'm on the side of Travis, and I can't believe that the San Francisco taxi company, whatever, isn't letting them get this idea off the ground because they're so outdated. And he has to run back and tell them all about, well, you used to have horse and carriage and you used to have this. So do you really want to be on the wrong side of history? But on the flip side, he's just charging people for, was it $1 each safety fee that absolutely does nothing except take an extra $1 off of every single person that rides Uber.
Yep.
So it does a really good job of having you flip sides. And I still don't know whose side I'm on. I love Uber still, but I definitely see the other perspective of it now.
Yeah, and like I went into it not expecting it to be kind of as comedic as it was as well. Like I was thinking it'd be more like We Crashed that we watched a few weeks ago. I thought it would be more like that, where it was like straight drama, but then it has those comedic moments. And you mentioned like the graphics popping up. That was very much like Wolf of Wall Street, where it was kind of like, here's the info without like just a big exposition dump of one person talking straight at you. It was like, here's the info in the background. You can take bits and pieces of it in as you want, but you're still kind of in the story.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to do it too. I think it gives you a lot of information quickly. You're right. I think it came to, was that Burley? Bill Burley, whatever his name is, the guy that funds the whole thing for them.
Gurley,
Gurley.
Yep.
Bill Gurley, there we go. Yeah, and it gives you a lot of information on him quite quickly, and it moves the story along a lot faster, which I think is important.
Yeah, and even like I said, 7 1-hour roughly episodes, like they felt like they flew by. They didn't feel really long and drawn out. It was like there was constantly stuff happening and you were constantly learning new things. Like I think that was my big takeaway from it. I learned so much about Uber as a company that I had no idea about.
Yeah, and even at the start, it makes sense. Like you wonder where they got the name Uber from. It used to be Uber Taxi. So instead of paying all the fees of being a taxi, let's just take taxi off the name. Now we're just Uber.
Yep.
So yeah, there is a lot of like little tidbits of information in it that I wouldn't have otherwise known about them. I still, as bad as I feel about some of the things they did and probably do, and that they're still just a sketchy tech company startup, I still 100% use them over a taxi. I'll never understand how people think that. I saw a taxi drive past the other, literally 2 days ago. We're driving back from Port Kembla, which already is a dodgy suburb. No offense, Port Kembla, but we were driving out of there, and a taxi on the side of it next to us had a sticker, like a decal, and it said, "Ride in a taxi, your safety is better," or like your safety is paramount. And I was like, okay, like I don't feel safe in a taxi. And then right in front of that, the guy had a cardboard cutout as a sunblock. So he got a cardboard box and cut it out and made like a sunshade for the side of his head. And I was like, you can't have a sticker saying, "Come in here, I'm safe," and then a cardboard cutout blocking out the sun that shouldn't be there anyway.
And is blocking out all your like peripheral vision and blind spot on that one side.
Oh, if you got to rate taxi drivers, You would hate to see the ratings that they ended up with.
Oh, yeah, there'd be so many that were just like 1 star, just getting absolutely blown out of the water. Like, some of them are terrible.
Hasn't found a shower since 1973, 1 star.
Yeah. At least like an Uber, if something happens, you have all the records of like, this was the driver, this was the time, this was where that was supposed to take me. They have all the GPS tracking now, so like they know where they did take you. Like, yeah, I feel way safer in an Uber, even though like the show does go into some of the controversies and things that happened with Boober. That was just a terrible comment. Like, why would he say that? What an idiot. Them spying on the drivers, I thought that was pretty hectic. And then like how that then plays into their battles with Apple and almost being thrown out of the Apple store. What else?
Yeah, I think tech companies are always going to go through those things. It's a really funny thing that people go through now of, I want convenience, but I'm not willing to sacrifice privacy. And at some level, you're going to have to. It's like, I want my delivery delivered to my house, but I don't want him to know where I live. And you're like, well, do you want KFC at your house or not? Like,
yeah, like you either go and pick it up or you let someone know exactly where you live and where they're bringing it. Like, I don't know. People.
Yeah, it's a really funny time to have, like, people want their cake and eat it too.
Yep. What else we get? We got their creative accounting. I thought that was pretty interesting, where they were just like, every time they were going out for new funding, they were kind of like, we're talking about revenue, not profits, and just like, this is our revenue, and like just trying to boost that number all the time. And then in the background, Gurley and all the investors are like, yeah, but you're spending 2-3 times as much as you're making in revenue. But it's an investment. We're changing the world, like disrupting the world, basically. I was like, you're an idiot. This is not going to work, but hey, Uber still like massive, so it worked eventually.
Yeah. What is it worth now? Can we look? We looked at this recently. Jim, what was it worth now?
I don't know. I didn't look. Probably ridiculous amounts. It did say at the end of the show, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, me neither.
A couple of the other things, the toxic work culture and the sexual harassment that was happening behind the scenes. I thought that was very eye-opening. And then there was the episode with all the women, and like they had a bunch of female engineers and programmers working for the company. And then, yeah, just because of how terrible the work environment was, with basically the supervisors on the first day immediately like trying to sleep with the female engineers that were brought in. They just slowly dropped off. And even when they were reporting the issues to the HR was basically like, just find somewhere else in the department to work. It's like, that's not right. That's dodgy as.
Pretty crazy now to be like that. And it was really similar with We Crashed.
Yeah.
They had like the sex covered in We Crashed. Like, the things you learn about these tech startups is that they're just they seem progressive, but they're very backward in a lot of ways, and it's very much not safe to be the CEO.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's just because like, I guess all these sort of tech companies are like founded by young like guys, and then, yeah, they kind of just get this kind of like fame a little bit and then just go, oh, we can do whatever we want. And it's like, no, hang on. We're not teenage boys anymore. Like, you need to calm your farm.
Yeah, it's like giving a teenage boy an unlimited bank account.
What else did we get? Oh, and then we got them just like brushing off. Like, it wasn't just the sexual assaults in the company. We had them brushing off sexual assaults that were happening in the actual cars by some of the UberX drivers, and even in Brazil and a couple of other countries, like just straight up murders of people, of either drivers or passengers. And it's like, why are we just brushing this off? Like, we need to address this, not just pretend nothing's happening.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to drive for Uber?
No.
I did. I went through the process of doing it, and then I had to get tires changed or something, and I just never went back and did it. But the police check was pretty intense at this point, and that was maybe 4 years ago. And the police checking and stuff was pretty intense at this point. But I guess I hate to be just talking about taxi drivers now, but there's got to be that happening in taxis all over the world too.
Yeah, and I guess like in Wollongong, we recently had the fake Uber as well. Like it's, I can see like where the issues are, where you're just getting in a random stranger's car and it's kind of unmarked for most people. But yeah, pretty intense stuff. And then the other couple of issues were them attempting to buy the rival company Lyft and essentially having that deal sewn up, and Travis just couldn't let it go and had to like push for that little bit extra and kind of basically humiliate the founder of Lyft, and then the deal was just like pulled, and they could have just basically sewn up the entire ride share market in one fell swoop, and he was like, nope.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this is the type of person you have to be. They're very narcissistic and very, almost sociopathic, some of these guys, but it just makes them so much money. It was $62 billion they're worth in 2022.
Wow.
So, I mean,
and that's basically after getting booted out of China as well, when they almost had that sewn up, and then the two rival companies joined together to fight them off. Like, oh God, they'd be worth insane amounts otherwise. And then I think the last like big controversy was them basically poaching Google's engineer for self-driving cars and trying to basically steal the tech and then getting busted in the process. And now nobody has self-driving cars except for potentially Google and Apple with their own version.
Yeah, see, I didn't get the whole way to the end yet, so
okay,
you have to let me in on it.
Yeah, so basically like he goes to an Uber conference thing, to like, no, a Google conference, and they're like explaining all their new tech, and he finds out that they're trying to, they've invested in Uber, and he finds out that despite them investing in Uber, they're now trying to develop self-driving vehicles. And he's like, why are they investing in my company if they're just trying to develop that? Because that's just going to destroy our whole business. So he gets in the ear of the lead engineer and basically convinces this guy, leave, just go away for a few months, and then after it's been long enough, I'll hire you and we'll develop self-driving cars for Uber so that we can make more money and not have to pay drivers, essentially. But then this guy develops this self-driving car, and for the meetings, he basically has a self-driving truck that drives from some way out place to meet them in the middle of the desert. Like, look, it drove itself here, no incidents, nothing. Sweet, sign the deal. But then Google finds out that, hang on, someone's using our tech because they scanned this guy's computer after he handed it back in, and it showed that he emailed himself the documents and then Googled how to erase a computer. I was like, surely a bloody engineer that can design a self-driving car knows how to wipe a computer properly, but apparently not. And that's how they caught him. He Googled it. I was like, you idiot, don't Google something. It's Google.
Bing it. It's the one time.
But yeah, like I really enjoyed the show. It was way better than I expected. And I saw that it's been renewed for a second season, but this time the second season isn't going to be about Uber. It's going to be like, what they're doing with this show is making it kind of an anthology, kind of like Black Mirror type thing, where each season will focus on a different like startup tech company, and the next season is going to focus on Facebook. So that'll be cool. Interesting. Okay. Lots of controversial elements there.
Oh, Zuckerberg. I hope they found a robot to play him.
Yeah, he's very robotic, isn't he? He's a bit weird.
Oh, he's an interesting man. Isn't he trying to go into like virtual reality now, like the metaverse and?
Yeah, well, they own.
I saw him and Neil deGrasse Tyson doing something like virtual reality based.
Yeah, he's done a bunch of like, I think he did an interview with like Oprah or like the Good Morning America type thing where it was all in virtual reality. I was like, it's just weird. Like, they're like cartoony avatar versions of yourself. Like, why not just meet? Like, do a Zoom call. I'd prefer to do a Zoom call than strap a VR headset to my head and talk to a cartoon version of you.
do you think this is where our generation will start to like pump the brakes? Like our parents used to be like, you don't need a mobile phone everywhere, or you don't need to just go outside. And this is where we'll be like, okay, that's too far for us now.
Yeah, you don't need to sit in your room and go and play on the playground in your room.
Yeah, just go and meet the person. Kids will be like, no, I don't need to.
No, that's just, I can just go down the park in my room, sit on my bed. No, that's weird.
We did it. We had a school sport the other day, and it was like they bring in VR headsets, and I put one on, and it turned out I don't know if you've ever played the game Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I know it.
Like the scary, like Chuck E. Cheese place. I
Yep.
put on a virtual reality headset for the very first time, found myself inside that little nightmare. And
Did
that
you
was me
know
done with
that's what you were
virtual reality
putting
forever.
on?
No.
Oh, good. Even better.
I don't know who chooses to put themselves in there.
I don't know. People that like scary things, but yeah, not knowing and then being thrust into that. Yeah, I can see how that just totally turned you off VR forever.
Yeah, that's it. Blurry vision saved me that point, though. It's not
Did
as
you get
scary if you
any-
can't see it.
Did you get any of the motion sickness? I
A
guess you
little
don't with
bit,
that one.
not
You're not like
super bad.
moving around too much in that game.
It's like you move around and like poke things to try and get around and out. But it was a little bit, but I definitely found myself very immersed. It had the handles that you use and things. But I mean, if they could get rid of the motion sickness, that's going to be a big one. But don't put me back in Five Nights at Freddy's.
Fair enough. Yeah, so looking forward to season 2, and we'll see how Facebook, super pumped Facebook, turns out.
It'd be interesting. I'd like to see a few other companies. There'd be some good ones.
Yeah, Apple would be another cool one. Like, but I guess that story's been told thousands of times, but I just think the way this was told made it super compelling and interesting as well. So moving on to topic 2, another entrepreneurial one, the Bob's Burgers movie. You watched any Bob's Burgers before watching this? Okay.
0 Bob's Burgers.
Interesting. So what did you think of this movie? Basically, it's a 2022 animated musical comedy based on the TV show Bob's Burgers, and it's now on Disney Plus. So I waited until it was on there to watch it. And it takes place after or between the events of season 12 and 13 of the show. So it's like everything's kind of established in this universe by the time this movie comes around. And it's basically much like the Bob's Burgers show, Bob and his family trying to keep their business afloat and deal with a whole bunch of wacky craziness that happens outside of their control. This time, a sinkhole opening dead center right in front of their restaurant, basically just stopping anybody being able to go into their restaurant and their restaurant only.
Yeah, I liked it. Actually, I lie. My one time watching Bob's Burgers is the gif of the girl. I've forgotten her character's name now, but the girl with the bunny ears that just does the hectic dance moves.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it funny. It felt like, just to me, I've not watched an episode, but it felt like just a very extended episode.
Yeah, 100%.
And even having not ever seen any of the episodes before that, I found the dumb jokes, for me, it was really funny. That, like, even just the little stupid puns and things they have in there, like the funeral home next door was called "It's Your Funeral Crematorium," whatever it was. Like, just the silly humor was enough for me. But yeah, I definitely missed the mark on a few things, just not knowing what was going on.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think it was a good way to sort of introduce people to this universe without like littering it with a whole bunch of like inside jokes. It was just silly, ridiculous humor. Bob, at like the very start, with his clearly anxiety-riddled mind, like just creating this burger and like talking to it, and yeah, his wife is just always super cheerful, and he's always just like panicked all the time, and then the kids are ridiculous. And what was his son making? Just like this weird like
the napkin
noise, napkin
instrument.
Yeah. So
Then he turned it into a band.
Yep. Yeah.
Just the itty bitty titty committee.
Yep. But yeah, real funny. What did you think of the big Carney musical sequence?
I wasn't expecting it to have a musical element to it whatsoever until I think within the first probably like 2 minutes, there's already like a song and dance sequence.
Yep.
I thought it was funny. Like I said, the one thing they do really well, and I can see why the GIF came from it. They animate really dumb dance moves really well. Like the way that they can make their characters move around, and I don't know, there's definitely something there that it cracked me up not knowing what they were going to do next.
Yeah, I think like just their art style like lends itself to like really weird like movements. And it's like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah, and it was cool. Like they did that Family Guy style, I guess, mix of the 2D and the 3D together, which I like. But yeah, the song and dance, it was very random. I think the one at the end where he was trying to unveil his master plot when they were down in like the boys' cave with the submarine. He was trying to unveil his master plot through song, but no one wanted to sing with him. And it just, it was funny. Like I enjoyed it. It made a different element to it. But yeah, I think you're right. The silly humor for me, being someone that grew up with Family Guy, and I don't know, I think the Family Guy and the Futurama and everything back in that time has done so much for these cartoons now. There's almost too many of them, but I think Bob's Burgers is probably a good version of that. But that silly humor of where like there's a massive car chase sequence and they're driving around in little clam cars
that go like super slow.
And someone says, could we not just get out and walk? I think it'd be faster. And like, no, they're going to keep going in the little clam cars. So I don't know, if you're in for that sort of a humor and you know what you're going into. The thing for Bob's Burgers movie for me was just having no idea of what I was getting into. And at first I was like, oh man, like this is going to be lame. But by the end of it, when I knew what I was in for, it made it a lot funnier.
Yeah, like I just thought like just the lyrics and stuff in that Carney musical as well was just like so over the top and like ridiculous for you. Every time they came up with a new verse, you're like, okay, you idiots.
I'm going again.
this is how this rhymes, okay. But I think what made it so congruent with like the series is they got back the original director and series creator Lauren Bouchard and series director Bernard Derriman. They got a bunch of like nearly all of the original cast back to reprise their voice roles. So I think by having those people that already had 12, 13 seasons of experience with this show, they knew the characters inside and out. They knew how to play them together and bounce off each other. So I think that's why it felt like basically just a long episode. It wasn't like the Simpsons movie, which kind of felt like an episode to begin with, but then got super grand and over the top. This one was like a very smaller, contained story, but just they had an hour 20 to play with instead. Yeah,
it definitely didn't have that. It didn't have the big rise and fall and the over dramatized stuff of The Simpsons, I don't think. But I don't know, to be honest with you, I would have preferred The Simpsons had done that. Me being like a massive, long-time Simpsons fan, it kind of took away from what The Simpsons is. I prefer a long Simpsons episode than I would a big, over-the-top cinema-style movie.
Yeah, Hollywood movie.
Yeah, like the big dome and Homer riding a motorbike and just big scenes of all the crazy stuff. I don't know. I prefer the long episode format. So I think that's something they did really well. I think that's what they do, and that's what they do. So why change it? Like you obviously want them to make the movie because of what they've already done. So I don't think they need to change their format.
Yeah, and especially now, like with streaming services playing such a big role, like this was, I feel like this was made, obviously for the cinema, but I think the streaming services were another big thing that they would have had in the back of their mind of, even if we don't make a bunch of money in the movie cinema, this is going to be a draw to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus and watch the movie there. So.
Yeah, well, it's definitely something that's going to get me to probably do the reverse. I think I already had Disney Plus, but it's something that's going to keep me watching Disney Plus. I find that a lot of the time obviously being a teacher and having access to those sorts of things in wet weather or whatever is like a handy thing to have with Disney. But me just being in a couple that doesn't have kids, I kind of sometimes find myself wondering why I still have it. And the star element of like the Disney Plus subscription just kind of doesn't have that much good stuff on it.
Every now and then it'll have like an absolute banger, but then a lot of the time you're like, whatever. I've really only got Disney for my Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. And I think now for this, it's good to at least have the almost reverse of that, where I can just watch the movie, but now I know, okay, well, I've got 12 seasons.
Hmm.
So 12 seasons, something like
Yeah,
that. So maybe I can
12 or
go back and
13.
actually enjoy that. Yeah, enjoy it in the reverse. So get hooked in by the end and maybe start from the start from there.
Yep. Yeah, there's currently 12 seasons, over 200 episodes. So you've got
Yeah.
plenty of watching to get through.
Strap in.
And like we're mentioning, in terms of how it did in the cinemas, I guess you could look at it as basically a flop in the cinema because it has currently grossed $34 million off a $38 million budget. So they're in the hole still. But I guess with the streaming services, they're going to make that back. We mentioned like Family Guy and like American Dad, shows like that. We've already seen a South Park movie. We've seen a Simpsons movie. Would you like to see a Family Guy or an American Dad movie or a Rick and Morty movie?
Okay, Rick and Morty had me, because I think Rick and Morty have so much more scope to do something big and crazy,
Mhm.
and it just is Rick and Morty anyway. You can just do anything with that, and it just works. Obviously, because they do the whole multiverse thing, so there's literally leaves themselves so many options of what they can do. But now that you're saying it like that, I guess if I was a Bob's Burgers fan, I'd be disappointed and sad that it didn't get what I thought it deserved. So it scares me as a Family Guy fan, American Dad fan, whatever, that I'd be scared the only way for them to go, if you're already up here, the only way to go is down.
Yep.
So I think just do what you know and what you're good at, and just people are going to keep watching you anyway. It's space for them to lose where I don't think they need to. Rick and Morty, on the other hand, I think they've just got such a cult following and just such a crazy brand that they could just do whatever they feel like and people would go for it anyway. Like you could do any type of grand movie or episode and I think it would work. But I don't know. What about you? What do you think? I can't see Family Guy doing it.
Yeah, I don't think we would get a Family Guy one. Rick and Morty, I think they're owned by Warner Brothers, aren't they? So I think if, like you said, they wanted to do a multiverse movie, they've got so many properties that they could branch out into. Game of Thrones, Harry Potter. Like it could be absolutely off the wall, crazy. Like we got with Space Jam, but wackier and funnier. I think like Space Jam 2, not great, but Rick and Morty doing this basically the same thing could have been really cool. I personally would love to see a Futurama one. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, Futurama is like that same vibe of Rick and Morty to me, though. If you give yourself the infinite universe, you give yourself the infinite opportunity to do anything. You know, any planet that has anything on it. So yeah, I think they could do that as well. But my fear with that would be coming from that same Simpsons angle, that I think that they would do the same style as what the Simpsons have done.
Yep, go a little bit too far.
Yeah, and it just didn't feel like the Simpsons. And I just like, it had the same characters and the voices, but the animation was a little bit different, and it just didn't feel quite right.
In terms of the Simpsons, have you seen the new trailer for the remake of the Simpsons Hit and Run game?
I have seen it in the works that it was coming, and I used to love that game. Like, I would drive around and hammer my order out the front of Evergreen Terrace for hours and hours and hours. So if they make it, I'm going to buy it anyway. That's the same as most of this stuff. They make it, I'm going to do it. But does it look good? Tell me it looks good.
It looks so good. Like, remember how the game used to have like that weird like 3D element to the characters? Not anymore. It straight up looks like it's an episode of the show, but you can play it.
Yeah, that's good. And that's what I liked of the South Park games, like Stick of Truth.
Oh yeah.
That it just felt like you were part of it.
Yep. Those games
so I think that's
good.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid though, you never realized that was the peak level of animation in games at that point. So I never even clicked that it was bad. I thought that was good compared to what I had before on my Sega Mega Drive. But
yeah.
It'd be interesting to see it now.
I was watching the trailer and they did the like, here's what it used to look like, and then they did like the slide across to the new version. I was like, oh wow, that's legitimately like just an episode now. Like the artwork's so much better.
Yeah, that'd be good. Did it have a date?
Off the top of my head, I cannot remember. It shouldn't be far away. Like they're just updating the graphics, I guess, and changing a bit of the controls. Like, it's not like a 3-year development cycle like it would be for a brand new game. So hopefully not too far away.
Yeah, I feel like Xbox has stalled for me a little bit at the moment. Like, I'm kind of just playing the same sorts of games and just waiting. I keep thinking that things are coming. Like, I've got the flight sim and that's really good. And I've just been playing Call of Duty a lot. But I've been waiting for like Age of Empires that got brought out with Xbox Live PC. But for some reason, they just haven't transported it across to the actual console.
Mm-hmm.
Desperate to play the new Age of Empires. And just games in the background like that Now Simpsons Hit and Run that I'm just waiting for something good again. You know, you're waiting for a movie that's good again and you think, when's something going to come along? That's how I feel with Xbox games right now.
Yeah, and after buying so many studios as well, I expected there to be a lot more Xbox games this year, and there just hasn't been. So they're not, I feel like they're not managing their studios all too well.
Yeah, I don't know. It was always the thing with Xbox that I know Sony and PlayStation seem to make a lot of games, so you have a lot more choice. But the draw card for me to be sticking with Xbox this whole time is that when they get one right, they seem to get it really right. So come on, I'm just still waiting. I just want that Age of Empires so bad.
I have it on my computer.
Yeah, see.
You have to just make a trip down to come and play Age of Empires for an afternoon.
Yeah, and just sit in your room and play your computer.
Yeah. Alrighty, that's the 2 topics for this week. What would be your top recommendation for the week?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think depends on your mood. I think overall you'd have to go with Super Pump because it's more real to life, and I think, like I said, Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a really, really good job. And the way that they've done it, I think you're right. It's a crossover between Wolf of Wall Street and We Crashed. Both of those I thought were great. So the combo of the two, I'd have to say Super Pumped.
Yeah, I went with Super Pumped as well. Like I said, just a really well done show. But I think like Bob's Burgers is good, but I can see how if you don't like that style of comedy, it would be a massive slog to get through. So yeah, go Super Pumped. I think most people will enjoy Super Pumped for what it is.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamieAppsMedia and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_CSEE.
Thank you.
Sweet. The commentary booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/JamieAppsMedia. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Blake Robinson, Rena Renee, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hatcliffe, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.